What up, Daily Gang? Daily Kamel here, and we're here to quickly talk about Banlist predictions. I'm going to try to get over these really quick, and I decided not to do slides because I don't have many things that I think are going to go on the ban list, but I just wanted you guys to show them all at once so that we could spend the most of the time talking about why I think these are going to be the changes and not discussing what the changes are. So, pretty easy to see. I think the only changes that are going to come to cards are going to be to hit Salamangreat directly. I think the other decks that are in the meta right now, they're really just starting to get their traction going, so I don't really think that this is an appropriate time to really touch any of those decks. But we'll get into more of those after we talk about what I have on screen here. So for limit 2s, you can see for Salamangreat, I am planning on limiting Salamangreat Roar and Salamangreat Gazelle. Now, why this specifically? Because I think this is going to be the change that hurts the deck the least initially. I believe that every deck should only have their first nerf to be a semi-limit, and honestly, Konami has kept up with that. I was doing some looking around earlier in the previous ban list to see if they had nerfed a deck this year more severely than removing semi-limited cards right away, and I couldn't find any. I had thought that Phantom Knights and Burning Abyss were limited very heavily, but no, even they were not limited heavily after the first ban list, after their release. It took them 4 months to limit Phantom Knights. So for Salamangreat, while I do think they are a special case and they are extremely strong, I don't think that we will see anything more than a limit to their main deck cards, preventing them from using semi-limited cards as they have, you know, pretty much historically whenever there is a super powerful deck. And a lot of people are saying that they believe that Salamangreat's Circle will be limited instead, that it will be limited to 3 or 2. And while I do think that that would be definitely a way stronger nerf, I don't think that it is absolutely necessary right now, and I think that it will unnecessarily hurt the deck's consistency. And I think the issue right now is that Salamangreat have access to semi-limited cards, and we can see how the deck will perform after that. We just got very powerful decks and very powerful support for rogue decks in the form of, you know, the new train support and Mech Knights also becoming a top tier deck on release. So I don't want to see Salamangreat take too much of a hit, you know, just a couple months into their lifespan. There hasn't even been a Banlist yet. This is going to be the first one. I think they need to really take it slow. All right. So for limit 3, I've got Needle Sealing on here. Now, Needle Sealing is an OG trap card from Valiant Souls. And when you control, where there are 4 monsters on the field, destroy all face-up monsters. Now, this card is a huge trap card that can turn the tide of a duel in the person who activates its favor. And I believe that this card has skirted by in previous years because it is a high-risk, high-reward card. You have to not only identify when you are going to be losing some resources, but your opponent, you know, you have to calculate what's worth it. Your resources lost versus your opponent's resources lost. And most decks that played Needle Sealing, they were slower decks that kind of could end their turn on set monsters, 2-set monsters, or 1 monster while their opponent is filling up their board, so your opponent loses more. The issue with Needle Sealing now is that we're getting into a time in Yu-Gi-Oh! Where decks are going to start coming out where they can protect their entire field with 1 card's effect on the field or 1 guy in the graveyard. And that's what we're seeing right now with Salamangreat. I think Salamangreat is the first deck that we're really seeing to abuse this, because Salamangreat Banlist is the easiest, probably the easiest proccable, you know, destruction protection in the game. Needle Sealing is non-targeting, and Banlist will also protect you from non-targeting destruction, which is very strong. So what would limiting Needle Sealing to 3 actually do for decks? And let's just use Salamangreat as an example, right? Needle Sealing is one of a few trap cards at 3 right now. Floodgate Trap Hole is also limited to 3. Cosmic Cyclone is also limited to 3. These are just the 2 basic cards that everyone has access to that are limited to 3. But now also Crackdown and Compulsory Evacuation Device are also new powerful trap cards that are in the selection box that are also limit 3. Now, while I don't think the reason for this card being limited 3 will be that there are also other powerful selection box cards that are at 3 that can be played, I think that when you look at decks in general and you look at their trap lineup, you can guess that there's going to be Crackdown, Compulse, And if they're a deck that can use Needle Sealing will also be in there. So I think that what a Limit 3 nerf will do is it will try to change up which trap cards these powerful decks have access to. In the comments, I want you guys to tell me if you had to choose between Needle Sealing, Compulse, and... oh my god. Now, what would the Limit 3 of Needle Sealing do for decks in the meta right now? Well, the only deck that really uses Needle Sealing in such a great abundance is Salamangreat, because, like I said earlier, they do have that on-spot protection for all of their monsters on the field. And what are the other Limit 3 cards that are competing in those deck lists right now? Well, they are Crackdown and Compulsory Evacuation Device. Many people are not playing Needle Sealing as much as they used to in their lists. However, I do think that for Salamangreat specifically, it has an effect above the rest of Duel Links, and I think that has to be looked at for how they want to balance future decks that have just better mechanics overall that can take advantage of Needle Sealing being an issue. It's kind of like, you know, them preemptively nerfing something just so it doesn't like become an issue all the time. Well, I think Needle Sealing does need to be put in a category with the other very powerful traps, because its value is going to go up as we get more powerful decks that have more, you know, consistent protection effects for their own monsters. All right, now we have Zhangke and Zhangsheng, the skill for Yugioh and Yugioh. Guys, you know, if you've ever watched Battle Phase Thursday, that I do not like this skill. I think it gives you far too many free resources and just free stuff to make Pendulums playable. And I don't think that we need that anymore for Pendulums. I think they've released a lot of cards. These two monsters in specifically are now released in the game with new powerful boss monsters for this deck. So in some way, I would like to see some of the resources have an activation condition or something like that. But let's get into the issue that I have, or not the issue I have, but I think what a lot of people think is the main downside to this skill and is acceptable for it not to be nerfed. And that is the fact that you must only play your level 4s and your level 7s and no monsters other than Performer Pal, Odd Eyes, or Magician Pendulum monsters. So this basically means that you cannot play DD Crow. And DD Crow is basically the strongest side deck option against decks like, you know, the new Shark Xyz, Water, maybe even, you know, Mech Knights if you can catch them in the right area. So Odd Eyes does not have access to DD Crow, but on the other hand, they do get free Pendulum Zones. And then once per duel, they can add Odd Eyes from your hand to your extra deck face up, and then place Zhangke Magician and Zhangsheng Magician in your zones from your hand or deck, then change the pendulum scale of them to 8. Now, the reason I don't like this skill is because the activation itself does not have a cost, and it gives you 2 cards from your deck for free, and the only thing that you have to do in order to get this skill to activate is to not play DD Crow. And I don't think that is acceptable, dude. Pendulum should be able to be good on their own, and this skill, it literally just like, it allows them to compete with other decks. Just not even like, you know, playing... oh man, I should rephrase that. I think that this skill gives you far too much advantage with far too little counterplay. And I don't think that you have to do all that much to really succeed once this skill is activated. All you have to do is open a board that lets you pen summon 4, and then make your 2 Xyz monsters, your Volofernigese and your Reg 4 Xyz, whatever you want to do, and sit on the rest of your OP back row, like, you know, Compulse and Crackdown, and you are good. Now, the one thing I will say that definitely makes this deck weaker is that you're essentially... your deck is better the more Pendulum monsters you open, but then the more Pendulum monsters you open, the less generic protection you have, like the good back row. You do have to rely on your end board, which is probably going to consist of, you know, Xyz monsters like Volofernigese and maybe a couple leftover Pendulum monsters. So in the cost of having not such a great end board, I think that's why this skill is kind of like untouched and people don't see it as a problem. But I don't like it. I think it should have some kind of activation condition. Maybe a life point one, man. I mean, it's not out of the question. 1,000 life points. Life point requirements are usually the killers of these skills, but something has to happen. Maybe you can't activate it on the first turn. I think that is actually the desired nerf that I would want. You cannot activate it on your first turn. It has to be activated on maybe your second or your third turn. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think I'm being too harsh on this skill? I just don't like the fact that, you know, decks like the Shark Z's, you know, they come out with these skills and they're so easily counterable, right? The new Shark skill puts a trap in your graveyard at the beginning of the duel. You're literally just asking it to get, you know, DD crowed, man. I can't believe they release skills with such clear flaws, and then they release skills like this, which just give you free resources, free pendulum zones, you know, free stuff to your extra deck, and all you have to do is not play DD Crow. So let me know what you guys think about that. Maybe I'm a little salty about it, but I think that by now, Odd Eye should be able to work without just getting skills, without getting zones and scales for free, and, you know, stuff in their deck as well. So I do not like it. All right, but just quick recap. Salamangreat, Gazelle, and Roar to 2. I think that this is the cleanest nerf for the deck without hurting it too much, without hurting its consistency. This is just making the 2 cards that you must play in the deck always be in your deck to prevent semi-limited cards, which is what I think, you know, Konami always does for their first nerf. In Needle Stealing, I do think as we get more powerful cards, it will become a problematic trap card, and Salamangreat definitely were abusing it. Sometimes they are still in the side deck in tournaments, but not something you're really going to see in regular play, I suppose. But yeah, Needle Stealing to 3 is just a, you know, just a speculation. And then Shanghai and Shang, I do believe this skill needs to get nerfed. Let me know if you guys think there's anything that I missed on the ban list. I don't really think that anything outside of this needs to get touched. Really short and simple. Let me know if you think I went too easy on Salamangreat or if I went too hard on Odd Eyes. And let me know what you think should be hit by the ban list. And guys, we're going to be making a ban list hot takes video. And we're going to be doing an unlimited tournament tomorrow. And any tournaments that happen after the ban list is announced, which should be happening in the next couple days, will be post ban list. So guys, stick around on the YouTube channel for more Duel Links content. And maybe stop by twitch.tv/Duel Yugioh to catch a tournament. Peace out, guys. I'll talk to you later.